So I want to welcome everybody in to Billing Systems Uncovered, everything you want to know about billing systems. I'm Dylan. I run partner success for the RevOps co-op. I'm sure I see a lot of names that I've seen before. So welcome back again. If it's your first time, welcome. On the call here today, we have Sandeep, Matt, and Lindsay coming in. They're going to take you through about an hour-long session of everything you want to know about billing systems. So Sandeep, I'm going to kick it over to you and let y'all introduce yourselves.
Awesome. Actually, let me just start from here. All right. So before we go to the intro, just some things that we'll talk about billing systems, because RevOps traditionally is focused on CRM and CPQ. And so the reason Matt, Lindsay, and I thought this will be interesting to talk about is why should RevOps think about billing, right? So we'll cover some concepts related to that. This is going to be a vendor agnostic call, so we are not talking about this is good with this vendor or whatever. So it's going to be at a very concept level so that you can understand what you need. Cool. With that, I'm the founder and CEO of Monetize Now. We are a 3-year-old startup. We are the ones that came up with like CPQ and billing need to be together. So we'll talk more about this. So that's our thing. Over to you, Lindsay.
Hi all, my name is Lindsay. I am all things finance at Middesk, which is a business identity platform that helps institutions automatically verify and underwrite their business customers. We were asked to do a fun fact. So my fun fact about me is that I once went to a taping of Price is Right. And me and my friends sat right behind contestants row. So there is an episode somewhere out there in the ether of me yelling very wrong numbers at one of the contestants. I didn't get called up during taping, but after taping closed, they did a drawing for $100 and I won and got to run up on stage, and it was as thrilling as advertised. Thank you so much for having me.
What was the first thing you spent with the $100?
I can't even remember what I bought with the $100. I have the check somewhere. I cashed it, but I saved the check somewhere.
Oh, they gave you a check. All right. Nice. Yeah. See, Sandeep kicked it to you. He thought he was going to get off easy. So like, what's your fun fact?
Fun fact. I don't think I've talked about this at all with folks. It was back in the college. I was building apps. It was like a multicultural community. And so at that time, App Store was coming up. So I built an app called Potty Mouth. It translated cuss words in different languages and you can hear them. I hired a person off of Craigslist to do the translations, like the sounding thing as well.
Yeah. So
it was a fun app at that time. So anyhow, it was like 20 years ago. So
that's great. That's actually hilarious. I love that. Awesome. Yeah.
So nice to meet you guys. My name is Matt. So I'm the RevOps and Strategic Alliances Manager at Do Control. So Do Control is a SaaS security platform. So we focus on securing data within the core SaaS applications. So Salesforce, Jira, GitHub, Google Drive, OneDrive, all of those core applications that run a business and a lot of us use and manage within our RevOps function. So I manage both our RevOps function. So customer success, marketing ops, sales ops, reporting, metrics, finance ops, all those things, as well as our strategic alliances with AWS and GCP and those things as well. Fun fact about me, I've traveled to a good amount of cities, and I usually like to say what my favorite city is. By far, Tokyo is my favorite city in Japan. Very clean, great food, also a fun nightlife if anyone enjoys the nightlife in Tokyo. It's a fun city.
I'll second that with you. That is actually my number one city in the world as well.
I was in Tel Aviv last week. Tel Aviv is also a very cool city, up and coming city, and they definitely were in the top 5 on the list.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm trying to get back to Tokyo for New Year's, so we'll make that happen because that is one of my favorite cities for sure. Well, awesome. Thank you everybody for all the panelists for jumping on and joining us today and helping just some thought leadership for RevOps Co-op. Before we get going, one last thing I do want to say is as we're going through, if you have any questions, please jump in the chat and throw them in the chat so we can just keep a log of everything. And as your questions come up related to the topic, we will go ahead and answer them. So don't worry about saving them to the end. We'll bring them up as the topic goes. But with that being said, Sandeep, go ahead and let's get this going.
Awesome. Thank you, Dylan. Well, here are the things that we're going to talk about. Just quickly, just most people would know this, but let's start with like, what is the coding usage and billing? What are we covering today? And more importantly, why should RevOps care about billing systems? Why has this change happened? We'll also go into then what is the right architecture for billing? And we'll also talk about when is the right time to make the changes in your RevOps stack, and how should you select a billing system? Like, what are the things that you should think about? And we'll also talk about this thing which is often not talked about. It's customer experience. In all the talk about putting these things together, and think about how our customers perceive our billing is kind of ignored. So we'll spend some time on that. As I said, this is going to be a vendor agnostic call. The idea is to learn together collectively. So please feel free to ask questions off of us. And yeah, let's start with that. Awesome. So in the RevOps stack, there are these four sort of pillars. One is coding, which I'm pretty sure everybody on the call is aware about because we all come from the RevOps background. This is the process where you generate a quote, an order form, an MSA, DPA, all of this packaged together. This is what brings money into the company. There's another pillar, which is usage, which is now becoming kind of important in the RevOps community as the business model shifts from SaaS to consumption-based. And so this is a sort of a new sort of player in the mix that we need to talk about. And then there is this traditional billing part, right? Which is the way of sending invoices, credit notes, debit notes, and everything related to that. And the last pillar is accounting, which is where the system manages your general ledger. In this stack, of course, in this call, we are going to focus only on the middle two, which is usage and billing, right? Awesome. So let's get into the heart of the question here. So why should I'm a RevOps person? I was told I should care about CRM and CPQ. Why do I even need to care about the billing system, right? So let's talk about that part. Traditionally, before SaaS came along, like the non-SaaS world, there was one channel primarily for selling, which is your sales lead. So there is CRM, and your coding system gets attached to your CRM. There was no usage, so kind of ignore that for now. And it was the world of one and done deals. There's no life cycle of a subscription. So you generate a code, you punt it to the billing team, they generate an invoice, thou shalt never talk with each other, customer gets the invoice, it's done. If the customer wants more, the rep goes to CRM, creates a new opportunity, writes up like, I want 15 more systems, and take a quote, go to invoice. It's a very linear flow. It's not even bidirectional. And so the life was kind of simple. If you're the sales ops person, your purview is to CPQ and the CRM. Also, at that time, there were infrequent pricing changes. I remember when I was working for companies like Cisco a long time ago, and we didn't have subscriptions, at least at that time. We used to make pricing changes every 2 years or 3 years. That was our time scale for changes. Now it happens probably on a monthly basis. Or maybe you want to do this on a monthly basis, but you can't do it because the tools cannot support it. And also it was a low agility environment. Low volume, high dollar deals. You close 3 deals every month, $1 million plus, you can put people to solve that problem, right? So that was the lay of the land at that time. And as a salesperson or a sales ops person, you probably didn't care about what billing system. You probably even didn't know what billing system that the company is using, and you didn't care. Well, that all changed with this movement to SaaS and consumption. You see the arrows earlier are very simple and linear, and now you see all this back and forth going on, right? So what's happened with SaaS? First of all, you have this product-led growth thing. So you go from one channel to multiple channels. So some of you may be belonging to companies that sell products on your website, right? Some of you have things that are happening from within your product itself. So instead of one channel, you have actually 3 channels to deal with. Now, all of these 3 channels need to have access to your CPQ as well. If you're a sales-led company and you're thinking, I don't care about self-serve, Sandeep, this doesn't apply to me. Well, actually, that's wrong. Because what's happening with sales-led companies is you want your customer to go through the sales-led channel, but at the renewal time or upgrades, you want to have a self-serve experience for them. So self-serve channel is actually relevant for everybody, whether you're a PLG company, product-led growth, or a sales-led growth company. And then you can see there's a usage part there because your coding system now needs to tell the code to the usage system. And the usage now needs to connect with the billing system because billing has to generate an invoice. So if you are a RevOps person now, your duties earlier were limited to the coding system. But now, because of this intersections involved, you are being led into the billing conversation. You cannot ignore that anymore. The complexity of connection between your coding and billing, I think, has grown exponentially. And that's the reason why you should care about this. Matt, I know you come from RevOps side, so what's your perspective on that?
I think from a high level point of view, RevOps has a responsibility to provide a seamless customer experience from the pre-sales to the post-sales. And that involves not just the coding piece, which is historically where RevOps and or sales ops, customer ops has spent most of their time focusing, but also is the invoicing piece. And I think providing a seamless customer experience comes from the internal processes you have in place. So for example, one of the biggest pain points between, let's say, the quoting and billing process today, where finance ops or RevOps or whoever's kind of owning that invoicing aspect, one of the biggest pain points is making sure where there's product alignment between the quote and the invoice. A lot of times, whether you're using NetSuite or Salesforce, I'm sure a lot of you are on those core platforms on this call. You have to manage price books within Salesforce. You also have to manage the same price books in NetSuite. And if they're not aligned and you're sending invoices to finance and your price book in NetSuite is different than your price book in Salesforce, your finance team that is receiving the invoice may have questions, say, hey, on the quote, we had X, Y, and Z products. And then on the invoice, it says 3 different things. Why is that? That's an added layer of friction within the revenue process that can be easily taken out by centralizing your billing and quoting infrastructure. So that's at like a hardcore example, but at a high level, I think RevOps, to be a strong RevOps professional, you have to be mindful of the entire customer experience, and the customer experience doesn't stop when they sign the quote at a new business or renewal. It's when, how they're being invoiced, when they're being invoiced, what's on the invoice, and making sure you meet the finance needs, not just the teams you're working with needs.
Matt, this is very interesting. But from an organizational perspective, if somebody's in the finance, would they give you a pushback on like RevOps team should focus only on CRM and coding? Why are you bothering us on billing? Do you think that sort of thing happens or could happen?
If that is a problem, then I think you need to have a pretty open conversation with whether it's your leadership team and your finance and RevOps team. I think from my perspective, your RevOps and finance team should be working hand in hand, and they should be very transparent with the things they're working on, the data that's available. You have to have trust between those two teams. I'm very close with our finance team and our finance resource, and we spend hours on end on a weekly, monthly basis working on all these different aspects of the business. And I think if you have a finance professional who maybe is not ready to adopt RevOps into their function, then it's something you have to you need to bring to leadership, and it has to be a leadership agreement on why this is important to have those functions working closely together.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Lindsay, from your perspective, so Matt was giving the RevOps side, but what do you think coming from the billing side of the house?
Yeah, so as someone in finance, I may be biased, but my thoughts are that everyone should care about billing. I think whether you realize it or not, it does touch every part of your business and can often be like an afterthought or pushed for different roadmap items, but it is something that's like incredibly important to the entire business as a whole. So But I think if you're asking RevOps specifically, absolutely. I think to echo the point that Matt just made, if you are in RevOps, I would highly, highly recommend buddying up with your finance team today and vice versa. Like, especially as the industry moves more towards having usage-based components, you will want to be in lockstep with each other. The smoother the process from CPQ to billing is, the faster your finance team will be able to close and have published revenue numbers so that you and RevOps can be driving insights and reviewing the health of the business. I think this has definitely changed where we're no longer just looking at bookings and being able to say, like, that's what our ARR is. We now have this usage component that we do need billing numbers to be able to post. And the smoother that process is, the faster we can get those posted and the faster we can start driving insights. I think second, you can be more nimble in experiments and can implement changes a lot faster if you guys are really in lockstep. And again, like Matt said, like if you're making the changes upstream and you guys are in lockstep, they can flow through much faster. And then I think three, in an environment where deals are harder to get done, you want to be able to say yes to more deals and not be constrained by downstream operational complexities. I think the worst thing that can happen is your finance team is pushing back because they can't bill for something in a scalable way because you don't have the right system in place. So I think, those are the reasons that I think everyone and RevOps should care about billing and billing systems.
Awesome. Thank you, Lindsay. And one of the things I'll call out is on this slide, I've put these quoting, usage, and billing in different colors. And what they represent is different product catalogs. So when you buy these tools from different vendors, every vendor will have a language or call it product catalog, some call it data model. And what that means is this is how you can sell things, right? Typically in coding, you can sell things in different shapes and forms, but once you come to the billing, it's a very constrained way of how you can sell. So your go-to-market typically is the least common denominator of what all these three tools can support, or these two tools can support, coding or billing, if you don't have usage. There has been a question about product catalog sharing between coding and billing, and I'll sort of go towards that in a couple of minutes. All right. So now we have established that as a DevOps person, and maybe as anybody in the company, you should care about billing. Then what's the right architecture for the billing, right? I hear these two things all the time. And I think in the RevOps forum, also people struggle with this question. Should I buy the best of breed tools, right? Like a separate CPQ or billing, or should I buy a unified thing? So let's discuss that. All right, so now we have established these are the things this is the architecture we are looking at. Now, how are we going to tie the things together, right? In this world, there is amendments and renewals. That's the biggest shift from non-SaaS to SaaS, that there is no transaction that's terminal. You have a contract in place, the customer comes in between and says, I want more. And I want to either co-term, like I don't want to change the contract length, or you want to change the contract length. And depending on that, you have to now prorate what the products that you're quoting. You have to remember what you quoted the discount earlier. So there is a connection between the quotes that you're doing, right? The biggest thing that we have seen, and we don't see that very often people doing this, is they're still stuck in the opportunities world in the CRM. If you're in Salesforce, if you're using HubSpot, that's got the deal object. So what that means is your first deal with your customer is on an opportunity or a deal. But once the customer comes for amendments could be an upgrade, could be a downgrade, or a cross-sell. You end up creating a new opportunity in Salesforce or a new deal in HubSpot. And there is no correlation between the two. And this, if you do that, the entire thing is going to break after that, which means there's going to be a lot of painful process of collecting these opportunities together. You have no idea what the customer has bought at a given point in time. If you have a tiered-based pricing and your customers are moving up seats, it'll just create a havoc in understanding what is the price that you need to give the customer on the third amendment. So if you go from a non-SaaS world to the SaaS, you should look at the contract object, So once the code is processed, the contract object comes alive, and that connects your CRM, coding, usage, and billing systems together. Some CRMs support that. I think Salesforce supports that natively. HubSpot doesn't support it. But Lindsay, what's your thought? Looks like you have a thought here. We'd love to capture that.
No, I think this is a good time to be talking about this for us, as we just went through a whole vendor review and are implementing a system right now. So these were a bunch of questions that we were thinking about. And I think what's the right architecture, and do we go with one cohesive system or two separate very good systems, was something that we were really thinking through recently. So very top of mind. For us at Middesk, and thinking through our needs, we're consistently adding new products, new features for fees, et cetera. So for us, it's incredibly important to make sure that we had a cohesive ecosystem with a single source of truth for product catalog. We have many price tiers we have usage-based billing, we have minimum commitments, we have platform fees, we have pass-through fees, we have all sorts of billing. So maintaining the infrastructure in two systems took a lot of extra coordination. So I think, as Matt was talking about, having to update something in your CPQ and then subsequently updating it in your billing system just makes things extra complicated, and you find that things don't actually always map, and then you have finance going to ask the salespeople or RevOps like why things aren't mapping. So if we made a change to a product or we launched a new one, we had to update all of our products in both CPQ and then billing, and then ensure that customers were appropriately billed for only the products on their order form, or not billed for products that weren't on their order form. So it was just a lot of confusion. But what I will say, I think there's a time and a place for separate systems as well. Like if your product catalog is more static in terms of only a few different types of contract structures or a few products, you may opt for prioritizing best of breed if it's something that you can more set it and forget it. For us, the engineering upfront costs, as well as engineering and operational maintenance costs of building and maintaining the bridge between two separate quoting and billing systems, was too high for us. So we opted for a vendor that does both, just to make it more consistent and to flow through easier.
Got it. Matt, your perspective on this? Like, as a contract should be the central object for connecting these things together.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the new approach. And I think, as Lindsay said, we're at a little bit of right now our pricing is fairly straightforward. We're a user-based pricing model moving towards a package-based with consumption going to be a piece of that. And we're investing in an infrastructure of quoting and billing early on in our RevOps financial operations journey, because we know to scale, we need to have that in place. And I think, as Lindsay said, there's a time and a place for it's okay to be separate systems and to do manual work. But if you're, we're a small team, it's really just me and a couple finance resources. We're trying to maximize our time as well, not just our systems time as well. So if we can automate as much as possible early on in our infrastructure, maybe we can stretch out our hiring a little bit longer until we need more resources, because we already have an automated, our revenue operation structure is fully automated. But I get back to your initial question. I think the contract is where the business is truly transacted. It's where the product is stored. It's where your billing address is. It's where you're going to have consumption data at some point. It's where you're going to invoice that data from. The opportunity is really meant to manage a deal. An opportunity is meant to say, I'm working a new business deal. I'm working a renewal. What's the status of this? What's our MedPIC criteria? How do you qualify that deal? All of those different things. It's not necessarily meant to track the revenue of that specific deal once they move to close one.
Sure thing, Matt. And one thing I would like to call out on this slide, right? The biggest thing that I was saying is that contract is the one that can tie things together. So even if you want different systems, make sure that they are all talking the language of contract, because then your amendments and renewals are going to be easy, right? So this is not a convincing argument to say, let's put things in one system, right? So even if you have different systems, contract object, things will still kind of work, right?
Hey, Sandeep, before I move forward, just wanted to jump in real quick, and so we can kind of stay within the same realm of the topic. We have two great questions in the Q&A section that popped up. If you want to go ahead and tackle those and maybe give them to some of the panelists.
Okay, I think the first question was about the product catalog, so we're answering this one here. Yeah. And then there's another question about, let me just read that through. I live in finance and usually end up picking up the pieces of coding and billing. And Lindsay, probably this might be for you. ASC 606, which is revenue recognition. So many of the usage billing scenarios. Okay, so the question is, where should the RevRec be handled from in a usage heavy environment, which is what Lindsay, you were talking about. So do you want to answer that, Lindsay? Like how would you handle revenue recognition?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think something that I think the next question that we were going to chat through was like, when is the timing to implement a new system? And I think for us, a big piece of it was ASC 606 and revenue recognition and the complexities around that with the current billing system that we were using. I think this is why you want to be really, really tight with your RevOps person and make sure that the way that you're quoting and the way that it's flowing through to billing is super clear for when the usage occurs, so that you're not just saying, for example, if you have a minimum commitment contract that is annual, like you need to be recognizing the revenue as it's accrued instead of the annual contract divided by 12. So you start to get a lot of complexity around when the usage events happen. And so by having a system that gives you like very clearly output of what exactly was spent in that month is super important for your then revenue recognition. I think this session is a lot talking about CBQ to billing, but I think a big part of choosing a billing system is making sure that that billing to accounting is super seamless as well.
And so Lindsay, on a quick follow-up on this one. So imagine you have split systems and a unified architecture. We haven't talked about the unified for now, but if you have these two options and a usage-heavy business model, is your RevRec problems magnify or when you have split systems, or it's kind of okay? I think that's one thing I would like to.
Yeah, I think it depends. I think the reason that we chose to make the move when we did was because we were using Stripe in a way that wasn't a right use case. And so the output that we were getting for revenue from Stripe was not actually correct and did not actually tie to usage. So we were kind of like manipulating Stripe to get to the output that we wanted. And so then on the back end, I would spend like 2 days kind of redoing revenue recognition to make sure that we were actually accruing the revenue in the correct month, to then pass it off to our accountant to then do it, to then implement it in the system. So us not correctly using Stripe caused a bunch of downstream impact for our revenue recognition, both in terms of like ARR and talking about the ARR piece, as well as like ASC 606 and the revenue piece. So I would highly recommend, I don't think it was a matter of like quoting and billing being in one system or two systems. I think it was a matter of make sure that you're not kind of manipulating a system to bill correctly at the sacrifice of your revenue recognition as well, if that makes sense.
Okay. Sounds good, Lindsay. Thank you for that perspective. All right. So we solve one problem, like contract is a new language that the systems need to talk, but we still have the issue of disparate product catalogs, especially if you're a usage company and there are vendors doing just coding, just usage, and just billing. So you have 3 sort of product catalogs to deal with. So which means that, Lindsay, you talked about minimum commits, and some companies do ramps on it, and there's minimum commit in advance, minimum commit in arrears. So all of these 3 tools need to speak the same language. If not, you won't be able to do what you really want to do. And that is what breaks the camel's back, in my opinion, and which is the strongest use case of now putting these things together. Because once they are together, what that means is if you can code for it, you can magically invoice for it. It's like kind of an automatic thing. It's the billing is the other side of the same coin, and the CPQ is the one side. And so now your connections become kind of straightforward, and everything is tied with a contract object. So this is the reason I feel very strongly about why CPQ and billing systems have to be together. If you need to iterate fast on packaging and pricing, which I believe is the story for every SaaS company out there, including ours. Perspective on this, Matt?
I think your point of view of the ability to iterate at speed, it is crucial in today's market. I think especially for the Series A, B, C, D companies who are, still learning and iterating their pricing strategy to best fit their prospects and customer needs. The biggest thing is, I think, with pricing strategies, it's great if you can, you can build a pricing strategy in an Excel doc, you can put it on a Google Doc, but if you don't have a measurable system and a process in place to be able to actually measure the outcomes of that pricing strategy, you can't actually make decisions on how you iterate on it. And part of being able to measure the success of a pricing strategy is not just be able to quote on it, but also your ability to invoice on it and be able to actually get payments on that pricing strategy. So, like, for example, if you're doing a monthly usage-based model, are you able to get your payments in on time on that monthly usage base? Is it clear to your customers how the usage is being measured and how it's being priced? So I couldn't agree more that the quoting, usage, billing infrastructure is kind of the future. And I think as companies move to the combination of annual based contracts plus usage is somewhat newer. It's come the past 2 to 3 years. It's become much more popular. Previously, the 5-10 years before that, it was either you were fully usage or you were a SaaS company. You were doing annualized 12-month contracts. That's not the case anymore. Companies are doing a combination of both, because I think it's what the market and the customers have asked for. And there's going to be new tooling and new systems that come out in place to support that. And I think the quoting, usage, billing combination is the path forward as the market matures.
Thank you, Matt. Lindsay, what's your thoughts on that?
I also think going back to like Matt's point, you want to be able to move fast and be super nimble. You don't want to be, your finance person gets the quote and then has to go back and ask a million questions about, is this annual? Is this monthly? Is it, what are the contract terms here? And then have to go to the billing system and try to tinker with it and figure out how to make it work in there. Ultimately, to maybe go back to the RevOps person and say, we need to change the contract this way. Like, you don't want that cycle. Because it just causes a lot of friction with closing a deal quickly, and you want to get to yes as fast as you can with a customer. And so if you can quote it upstream and then it's already set up, downstream into billing, then all of that complexity kind of sits at the top with RevOps, and RevOps like working with the salespeople to make those decisions. And you kind of leave out finance in that equation in like adding that type of complexity. So I think ultimately all of our goals is to say yes to more customers and faster. And I think by having one system, one source of truth, one product catalog, you can get there significantly faster.
Sounds good. There's one thing that I didn't call out on this slide is, and Matt, you brought this up earlier, like there is a product catalog in the CRM and accounting, right? What is happening to that? So in this architecture, you are actually configuring your product catalog in this system, and this system is then feeding the product catalog to your CRM and your accounting system. So they are listeners in that. So you as a RevOps person is configuring things only in one system across all the channels. And I haven't even talked about resellers here, but if you talk to companies, even public companies, reseller motion is primarily for email, which is like fax in my opinion. But I think that should be automated as well. And those things can be automated if you're putting the catalog in sort of one place. All right. Okay, so what we have established is DevOps people should worry about or care about billing. Second is there is a strong use case for putting these things together in one system. If that's the case, then what's the right time to think about shifting to this architecture? Because people might be working for companies that are sort of at different stages, right? So the way I've laid this out is like 3 separate scenarios. One is if you're a early stage company that you're pre-revenue or some early revenue in place, and then you have some like 1 to 10 million in ARR, and then late stages when you're like a 50, 100 million, 200 million ARR. So if you're an early stage company, you don't have any systems in place, you're possibly using QuickBooks for sending manual invoices, this is the right time to actually put this system in place. And there are two schools of thought that, because I'm a founder of a company and we upgrade systems. So I brought a different HR system, like when we were 2 employees, now we're like 25. So I changed my HR system. So the general thinking is we will change systems as we grow. Why to worry about this early on? Your revenue operations is, I think another field is identity in your company. There are 2 technology stacks. You do not want to change them as you grow. So whatever you're doing when you're a 1-person company or a 2-person company, and whenever you are a 1,000 people company, these are the systems you do not want to change. The change management is too much. So what we recommend is start early, start clean, and it should be good. The second is when you have some sort of revenue. And at that stage, what we have typically seen is people have a billing system like a Stripe or a QuickBooks or something like that. But for coding, they're using like a manual process or an e-sign solution. So what our recommendation is to first change that manual coding to a CPQ, because that's the start of your quote to cash process. It'll clean up the data in your CRM. And then you have those 2, like a separate CPQ and a billing system. And if they are talking the language of contracts, it's great. And then over a period of time, then you can decide to move to a unified system. But make sure that the tool, the CPQ that you're purchasing, has an ability to go into billing. I would also like to highlight here, there are 2 ways for CPQs to do billing. Either CPU companies buy billing companies or add billing later on, or billing companies add CPQ features later on. But none of these 3 strategies have worked. And the reason is how you quote and how you bill has a very strong implication on your product catalog, which has to be done on day 1. It's very hard to change your product catalog once you've decided to build a product around this. So a piece of advice is to look at a system that has done this earlier on so that you can get the best benefit. If you're a late stage company that has a very solid CPQ in place, a very solid billing, 100 salespeople, at that stage, it's very hard to move things from your stack because of the huge amount of revenue going through the system. So what we recommend is trying this unified architecture for a simple use case or a self-serve or a contained use case. Make sure everybody understands the benefit of that. And then you migrate the CPQ. And then you migrate the billing system. So do this in steps. Matt, perspective on this?
Yeah, and I think to kind of relate it back to a little bit to how my brain works in the market a little bit. Companies today are much more mindful of profit and profitability from an early stage. Not as much as it was 2, 3, 5 years ago. It was really about kind of growth at all costs, and pricing structures weren't as rigid and as tracked as they are meant to be today. It was kind of like get the customer, get the dollars, and we'll figure out the rest later. Now, from early stage, from day 1 creation, investors, the company are really focused on how do we build a pricing structure? How do we build a business that can be profitable? To be able to do that, you have to have a pricing infrastructure in place and a system in place to be able to actually track that process and to track that profitability. So you need to be able to say, all right, if we go below 40% on our discount, we know we're going to, be below this percent profit margin that we don't want to be. You can obviously do that a lot of maybe in your head when you're in that pre or early revenue, but once you get the mid revenue and you have a sales team and you got 5, 6, 7, 8 reps working, you got renewals, you have CSMs, there's no possible way for you to do that. And you need a process in place to be able to put controls in place to be able to do that. So I think to relate back to the market, that's really a crucial aspect that a lot of teams are starting to think about today. And the CPQ and billing part of that is a must to be able to build that infrastructure. I think second to that is, as teams are trying to maximize the amount of resources that they have, automating your CPQ and billing can be one of the quick wins, especially as an early stage company. A lot of that is often taken down, as you said, down the road. And from there, you're unwinding quotes, you're unwinding contracts, you're trying to unwind NetSuite or QuickBooks or migrate to QuickBooks to NetSuite. And it's, maybe the person who started it's not even there anymore. And it's just a whole nightmare. And I think the earlier you make these investments, the better you're going to be down the road. For me to have, I call it, whether it's data debt or RevOps debt, that you're going to have to make up. You're going to be able to spend that time down the road on actually improving and iterating your pricing strategy, instead of having to go backwards to just lay the foundation.
Lindsay, I know you went through a change as well, system. So do you think if you have to do this again, would you start clean, or would you still recommend starting with 2 separate products and then having gone through this?
Yeah, so we are a mid-revenue Series B company, so we're kind of squarely in that middle section there. We invoiced through Stripe for the first few years of the company. There was a lot of manual work, but it was manageable. I think the one thing to counter Matt a little bit is it did allow us to be super nimble in the experiments that we were trying. We gave agency to a lot of the AEs to try different types of structures, quarterly, monthly, annual, pay-go, blocks. Like they were just kind of trying things because we just didn't know what was going to stick and resonate in the market. I think, that did require some cleanup on the back end when I did join, and kind of consolidating down to a few structures that worked. But I think right at the beginning, you do want to try those experiments. You're not going to know what type of contracts are going to resonate with customers right off the bat. So if you are going to implement more rigid processes, make sure that you allow for some nimbleness as well, and to try and test things out. I think for us, I think in hindsight, we maybe would have done the unified a little bit earlier. We definitely got to an inflection point where it was taking me 1 to 3 full business days just to send out invoices, which to Matt's point is not a good use of your finance person's time. And then as I spoke to earlier, it caused some revenue recognition issues, which I would have to clean up on a monthly basis as well. So I think also, that manual process, inevitably there will be errors, and our internal processes should never, ever, ever impact a customer. And so that was really an inflection point for us as well, when it got so big and so unmanageable that we were worried about errors impacting customers. So I think to answer your question, yes, I think I wish we would have done it a little bit earlier. I think maybe for us right out of the gate may have not been appropriate, right when we started. I think, maybe around the time when we got our Series B and started to really hone in on what contract structures really worked, I think we probably should have done it a little bit earlier.
Got it. And there's actually a question as well. Is about, does the billing system in this model take discounting and invoicing rules into account? And I think the answer is yes, because that's the job of the billing system. And it's the accounting system that now allocates the revenue. But I think if the question is about RevRec in this integrated model, we recommend doing RevRec in this integrated system rather than putting this in the accounting system. Any thoughts on that, Lindsay? If you have a unified architecture, where do you do RevRec? In this system or in your accounting system, or does it matter?
I think you should do it in this system. I think you should try to house all of it under one system, and you don't want that trying to translate from billing to accounting. I think you want that output to live and sit within your billing system.
Got it. All right. So now a related point, what are the things that you should look for in the billing systems, right? So from our perspective, so first of all, look for a billing system that can grow as well. So CPQ and billing together. And what we have seen is in the industry again and again, is people spend a lot of time on their product, but they kind of ignore the connectors. And the way you do that is you put your, least smart engineers or least whatever engineers on their problems, like connectors. Well, we'll take care of that. Who cares about that? But the connectors is where I think you should pay attention to, because if you're Salesforce, a lot of your revenue forecasting happens from that system. Are you using custom objects? Are you using standard objects? How you architect things is very important. So those are some things that we suggest people to look at as well. robust product catalog. When I was writing this, it's like, what does robust mean? It's an easy word to say. It sounds good, but how do I check whether a product has a robust product catalog? And I think what I came up with this is figure out a $1 billion revenue company that's using that billing system. Now, what that means is a $1 billion revenue company will have all the complexity in selling that's out there, right? Which means the product catalog of that system can grow to the needs of that company. I was talking to a public company. They're about 2.5 to 3 billion in revenue. They're using one of those billing systems that they started using, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. And so it's hard to take it out. So they had to have engineers working on top of it. Lindsay, to your point earlier about upfront engineering costs, they have a team of 300 people, not 30, not 60, 300 people, including engineers, product managers, trying to make a sense out of this system. And they are a PLG company and a sales-led company as well. So this is the kind of complexity that grows if your engine of your car cannot represent the business that you're selling. There is a great article, actually, I should have probably put a link here. People can Google that. It was an article at the publication called Protocol. And they were talking about why are people frustrated with mid-market billing systems. So it's a great article. Take a read. I'll put a link on this article, on the slides. Usage, I think, Lindsay, you talked about this. Whatever billing system that you're choosing, make sure it can understand usage. Even if you're not doing usage today, you'll do some sort of usage tomorrow. I'll give you a personal example. As a founder and CEO, we use tools in our company. There's a tool that we love. Our engineers love that tool, but their pricing is horrible because they price on a seat basis. And we are hiring engineers, we are a growing company, and sometimes these licenses move up and down, and I have to manually go and up and down those seats. And this is kind of nuisance to me. Like, why can't you say, monthly active users, just charge me on that? We love the product. Why do you want to make that friction in billing? And I think we'll talk about in customer experience. And that's one reason I'm frustrated with that company, is this just makes, sometimes you're overpaying and maybe sometimes you're underpaying. I don't trust billing for that company. So also, anyways, make sure it's a modern billing system. What are the characteristics of a modern billing system? Billing systems have existed for the last 20 years, right? Modern to us means it's smart. It's ChatGPT for smart. So what that means is it chooses the best payment processor available based on the customer and the region that you're doing business with. It is smart enough to detect invoice anomalies. If the invoice is in a certain range for a customer, suddenly jumps, it takes a pause. It allows billing team to run different scenarios. It's an API-centric system that you can put this in your product, and does revenue recognition as well. So anyways, this is a quick list. Lindsay, any thoughts on that? Because you are front and center on this one. Did I miss anything? Do you feel strongly about certain things, less strongly about certain things?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would add is make sure that it's, for us, we did have some engineering upfront costs of redirecting usage from Stripe to monetize now. But a big case that we wanted to make was that there wouldn't be a lot of ongoing eng support required. I think a lot of companies that try to build a billing system in-house or something like that, you end up having these massive teams of engineers that are solely focused on billing. And so when I made the case to change billing systems, I said, look, I know we're going to need some eng resources up front. I know as we add products or change platforms or things like that, we're going to have a little bit of eng support to make sure that we're, continuing to send usage in the correct way. But I didn't want to implement something that would require a lot of eng time and resources. And for me, I felt like if we had two different systems, we would constantly be having to make sure that those two systems were talking to each other and that bridge was always connected, which required eng resources. So I think a big piece of selecting one was how autonomous can I be in owning the billing system with the vendor, as opposed to also having to constantly be using our own internal eng team. So that was super important to me. And then I think the last thing that I will say is, as a mid-revenue company, we do have a lot of customers already. We did have infrastructure built. And so moving everything to a new vendor has been a big lift. So this might be an underrated thing to say, but like make sure that the people that you're working with are people that you like and you enjoy and you trust, because you will spend a lot of time with them. And I think that, you know, when you're doing a vendor review, that's kind of sometimes pushed aside, but I do think it's incredibly important because you will spend a lot of time with those people and become best friends with them. So.
Awesome. Matt, any quick thoughts on this one before we move? Because I know we are almost end of time, but any quick thoughts from you on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most crucial part is, you know, I'm not as involved with the billing aspect. You know, I'm involved from the quoting and sending the invoices, working with finance, but from the revenue rec, you know, that's really our, you know, our finance resource, and I just help support where need be. But I think to Lindsay's point, I think, you know, there's not a lot of products out there that are doing this kind of modern billing plus CPQ functionality. You need to find one that you feel you can grow with and can meet your needs today. But, you know, maybe they don't meet maybe the 80% of your needs today, but you trust them that they're going to meet 100% or plus 100% beyond your needs within the next 6, 12, 18 months, because you've built that rapport and relationship with them. So I think it's crucial to understand that when you're doing your analysis. No tool is going to be perfect at it, and I think we're going to get there. We're going to have these CPQ usage billing tools that are going to be very robust, but it's going to take a couple of years for us to, you know, work out how they need to bill, how do they account for resellers, and, you know, the marketplace motions that people are doing today. There's a lot of complexity with this, and it's just going to take time to get there. But find a vendor that you can trust, that you can work with, that can meet your needs today, but also you can trust it's going to meet your needs in the future.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. And so the last part is customer experience and billing. I just talked about a personal thing for us, like, which frustrates me. I actually was trying to, another personal incident is I love this product again. It's a PLG company, about, I don't know, 200 million in revenue. So doing very well, but I wanted to change my, like, from a, I don't know, a silver plan to the gold plan, and their proration was incorrect. So they were not giving me credit for the amount that I had paid them earlier, and they were charging me for the remainder of the period. So I felt that was very unfair billing, and they didn't even tell me about this. It was like, I don't know, 10 or 20 bucks. It was not a huge amount. But the fact is, you know, billing, people care about cents and dollars, and it's about trust. And there are things about, like, as a customer, I would like to pay or see all the invoices in the product. If it is self-serve, I want to be able to do core term or these discounted extension or superseding from within the product. Renewal should be within the product itself. Like, why do I need to call a rep? It just frustrates me because we use, I don't know, 25 SaaS products. Like, why do you expect me to get on the call with every renewal person? If the deal is big, that makes sense, by the way, because I want to renegotiate. But if the deal is small, let's just keep going, right? Business moves fast. Anyhow, any thoughts on this part, Lindsay? Because you must be looking at issues that customers talk about in billing.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, as you know, someone who pays a lot of our accounts payable, like, I look at a lot of invoices, and there's nothing more frustrating than not being able to understand what we're paying for and, like, why the calculation is the way it is. You know, I think there's some vendors where I'm constantly going to, you know, whoever within Middesk purchased that vendor and being like, is this invoice right? Does this make sense? I don't understand why it's prorated this way. Like, why do we get a credit here and not here? And it just, that takes a lot of time. So when I'm thinking about, like, our own billing systems, I want to make sure it's very straightforward for our customers, because I think people forget that that is still part of the customer experience, even though it's usually finance team to finance team, that is still part of the customer experience, and making sure that that's clean for them in the way that I expect that it's clean for me as well. Yeah, I think the other piece of customer experience is I think I mentioned this earlier, where we had to kind of slim down some of the contracts that we were able to offer in favor of being able to scale faster. But if you have a billing system that can operationally handle more complexity, then you're able to say yes to more deals, and you're able to be a little bit more nimble and flexible with customers who want maybe some more custom requirements without adding a ton of operational complexity on the back end, which just creates a better customer experience.
I'll go on a limb, and I know you have 4 minutes out, but I'll go on a limb and say this thing. I have personally used products that may not be as good as other products, but they make doing business with them so easy that I would rather use a much, product with lesser features, but much easier to do business with, versus a great product, but the business, like doing business with them is full of friction. So I personally think billing, if you have said this right, is actually a strong competitive advantage for you as a company. Summary. What are the key takeaways? Contract is the hero of the new SaaS world, not opportunities. One product catalog, try to gravitate towards that epicenter where the life is going to be better. And I think the biggest thing is I see that RevOps people job is in plumbing, like connect the system. The product marketing says, let's do this thing. And then you go and figure out how to change things. And that's where the time is being spent. I think the time needs to go from that. This all connecting stuff should be left to software. I mean, we have ChatGPT-4 right now. That's the extent of what software can do. What we are asking software to do in RevOps is peanuts. So the software should take care of that complexity. And RevOps should be doing, I think what Matt, you said earlier, is about pricing strategy and implement that. I think that's when you become the heroes to your board, to your CEOs, to your CROs, to your CFOs. Last thoughts on this, Matt, Lindsay?
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's on, RevOps professionals too, to give feedback to a lot of these vendors on what's needed to get us to a point where, especially the quote to cash process is, and that's where there's a lot of time spent. There's times where RevOps probably spends the two most time. It's probably quote to cash. And then if you're also owning marketing ops, it's the top of funnel and like attribution, which is a whole different topic. But if we could fix one of those and automate those as much as possible, it's a huge strategic advantage for the business, because as a RevOps person, you understand the ins and outs of the business, probably next best to probably maybe the founders, because you're involved in so many things so often. Your ability to actually provide huge strategic value to the business is often untapped. And for RevOps to really start to make a huge dent with companies, we have to move away from this automation, from this manual work into automation, and leverage those strategic conversations. That's whether it's pricing or sales infrastructure or territory models or account strategy, all of those different things. Those are the time where RevOps really starts to make a incremental increased revenue impact to the business.
Thanks, Matt. Quick thing, Lindsay, I know we are about 30 seconds away. So
yeah, if you don't know your finance person and you don't have a weekly or biweekly catch up with them, go do that now. Buy them a coffee or martini, whatever toots your horn, and get to know them and become buddies with them.
Love that, Lindsay. Thank you so much both for being here. Dylan, over to you.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. Matt, Lindsay, Sandeep, thank you for jumping on and bringing down everything billing systems from not only a RevOps perspective, but a finance perspective that kind of goes hand in hand daily more than we think. So thank you for coming on and jumping on. And as always, everybody, thank you for being here, taking the hour of your day. And we hold these events just about weekly, almost 2 times a week. So go to our events page and log in for next one. We hope to see y'all soon. And Lindsay and Matt, hope to talk to y'all soon. All right.
Cheers.
Thanks,
Everybody have a good day.